Hello Year 8, Mr. Jones here, introducing the next task for this week, which is creating a sequel. Now in this task what I'm going to be asking you to do is take one of your favourite stories and continue it. When the story ends, what happens next? Now before we go into it, let's start off with our do now, so get your pens, papers, keyboards ready and get typing. Good luck, and if you've got any questions, there's an email on the last slide, so you give me an email and I'll help you out as best I can. Okay, thank you very much. Good luck, Year 8. See you later. So it's time for the do now, guys, to get your pens, papers and keyboards at the ready. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do this. I want you to pause it when I say give yourself 5 minutes and then restart the video to get the answers, alright? So there's your 5. Start it now. Pause the video now. Alright guys, so that should be your 5 minutes up, or if you've answered all the questions and need to move on, well, let's continue. So the first one we've got is name 2 synonyms for sadness. Okay, so you could have misery, despair, or something along those lines. Alright, next, how would we know that a character is speaking in a script? Well, we'd know that because it'd have the character name before the dialogue is there. Number 3, what do we call an action in a script? So how do we know when we're looking at a script that an actor does something? What do we call that? That is of course called a stage direction. So you should have that. What stereotypes would a villain have? A villain would have stereotypes such as an evil laugh, or have a burning jealousy, maybe. And then finally, use the word ferocious in a sentence. The fighter was ferocious in their campaign to win the battle. Things like that. Alright guys, that's the do now done for today. Hope you did well. Let's move on and get the rest of the activity started. Starting with creating a story and how you did for that. Alright, so guys, let's move on. First of all, before we start the sequel section, I just want to say that the creating a story section from last week was really impressive. Those who came up with the stories and sent them in, I was really impressed with how you did, considering that the piece was very broad. You could create a story on anything you want, which I know is really broad. A lot of you came up with some stuff there that was pretty impressive, so I want to thank you all for that. Some of the good points that were included was, again, a great range of ideas, some excellent use of vocabulary. Some of you really impressed me with the words you chose to get your points and your feelings across in your pieces, so well done with that, and the success criteria was mostly met. So I'm really happy with those. What I would say, what needs work is to plan your timelines a little bit better, because there were times where the story moved on, but I feel like there was more that could be put in there before that. Okay, and again, the characters could have been a little bit more in depth. But overall, guys, a massive well done. Really proud of your work. Keep that up for this week. All right, let's move on. So guys, this is going to be what to base it on. Now, it's hard for me to tell you what you should be basing your piece on, because you're going to have your favourite stories just as I do mine, and it may be a case that I may not know your story, or you may not know the stories that I will give you as an example. So what I would say is this is all going to be your ideas, okay? So you're going to have to really focus on what you're going to want to continue, whether it be a TV show, a film, a game that you've played, or a book you may have read recently. So you're going to want to carry on a story of your choosing, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of what I've continued on a little later on, and that is the musical Wicked. I've chose to continue that. So there are some spoilers ahead, so I apologise. But what I would say is what to base it on is going to be all on you. You need to decide what you are going to continue. Okay? Let's move on. Once you've decided the story you're going to carry on, I can hear you already saying, what am I going to start it on? What am I going to start? How am I going to start the sequel that I want to portray? Where am I going to start from? So I've given you some ideas there that you can think of when starting your piece. Okay, so the first one I've got there is, what is the setting like? Have the characters moved? Have they gone from the setting that they were in at the end of the last story to somewhere else? They may have, and if so, why have they done that? Okay, so if you are thinking that if it's going to continue in a school, what could be happening in the school to influence what's going to happen next? Okay, the second one I've got is to think about characters and what their life and lives would be like after the previous story ended. Maybe a character lost someone in the last story, maybe that stuck with them and they're trying to deal with that. The third one, this is your chance to take the story where you want to go, so take it. Explore any ideas that you found fascinating in the last story and elaborate on them. So it could be maybe in the last story somebody found that they had maybe a special power, or they met somebody in particular that they really want to get to know, and things like that. So you've got to think about what elements of the previous story has fascinated you, and maybe you can elaborate on those to start the next story. Okay, and finally, think about how the story ended. What happened in the last story? How did it end? Did it have a final ending, or could something happen after that? Did characters survive? What characters didn't? Maybe they come back to life. Maybe they are a constant figure in that character's mind. Yeah, so I want you to think about how the story ended and what clues are there for us to continue that story. Let's move on. So guys, the ever-present success criteria. So as you know, we've been trying to make our writing interesting by giving you a certain criteria to meet within your writing to make sure that you're expanding your knowledge. Okay, so in this case, I've given you 5 points to work from. These 5 points should be really easy for you to get in. If not, though, I'll elaborate on how to use them. So the first point is to use the word engrossed. Engrossed is to really focus on something, to really be involved in something. So if you are engrossed in a book, it means you are focused on that book. You are concentrating on that book. Yeah? The second point is to include an example of personification. Now don't forget that personification means to give something human qualities. So the darkness stared, the trees stood, the wind whistled. These are things that humans do, okay? So we are giving an object, or um, an object human features. Number three, I want you to write at least 1 page of A4 paper. Now that doesn't limit you to writing just that. If you want to continue your piece, make sure you're finished and it's coming up to more than 1 page, then please be my guest and go further. I'm really interested in seeing what you're going to come up with, guys. So I want you to write as much as possible, preferably. But as I say, at least 1 page of A4. Number four, 3 different types of punctuation. I really want you to focus on using as much punctuation as possible. Getting used to using punctuation is essential. So make sure you get that one in. And finally, end the opening chapter on a cliffhanger. So with that, guys, I want you to put something in there that makes the reader want to continue, makes the reader want to think, whoa, that's just happened, I need to know what's going to happen next. So they're going to want to carry on. So make sure you get that in there, okay? Make sure you get a cliffhanger, make it gripping. So in this slide, guys, I've given you an example of the sort of thing I want, okay? Now, looking at the success criteria at the side and the extract that I have written, I want you to see if you can find each of the success criteria in there. The only one that's not going to be in there is going to be the at least one page of A4, because unfortunately PowerPoint doesn't support that amount of words. Really, it's going to be really hard to get that on. So all the rest are included in that. Now, what I've based mine on is the end of Wicked, the musical. It's also a book, but the end of Wicked, she fakes her death, and she runs away with her lifelong love, Fiyero. Now, with that in my extract, I've got in there that they have been on the run for about 2 years now, and they are continuing to struggle to life because they are constantly on the run. They've been on the run for 2 years, and as they finally settle, they find somewhere to settle through a friend, and they realise, or Elphaba has a sense that they are not the only two people in the room. There is somebody else there. And so she illuminates the room. When she does so, there's nobody there. But for the last couple of weeks, she's felt another presence that's made her sick every morning and made her crave the taste of peanuts, things like that. So I hope that you may know where that's going to go. If you don't worry. But there is my cliffhanger. I've got an element there that makes the reader think, is that what I think it is? I want to read on to try and find out more. So with that, guys, go through the extract that I've given you there, and I want you to either mark in or note down where the success criteria has been implemented. Okay, so where has it been used? So it's time to give yours a go, guys. So using all of the previous slides, I want you to think about what sequel you're going to go with, what sort of characters you're going to continue on, and really use your imagination to build on that, build on where it can go. Now, I'm not asking for the entire thing. I don't want a full story, a full sequel, a 94-page epic. That's not what I'm asking for. What I would like you to do is just start it off. So just continue with the first sort of chapter or two if you want to. So use those, a chapter or two of the next story. Where is it going to go? And make sure you include the success criteria that I've given you. Include the word engrossed. Include an example of personification. Write at least a page of A4 paper using paragraphs, please. Also, 3 different types of punctuation, and end the opening chapter on a cliffhanger. So where is it going to go next? And the final ingredient I want you to include is to just have fun with it. This is going to be fun using your imagination in such a way. So let your imagination run wild. Make sure you include that you should have fun with this. It is a fun task. So make sure that you are getting your own personal sequel in there and going from there. Alright? Thanks. Alright, guys, so that was the sequel task for this week. Now, I hope that the presentation explains everything you need and it gives you the imagination and the juices flowing to get a good start on this and a good sequel. Now, as I said before, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're all well. I'm missing you loads. Can't wait to be back in the classroom with you. But if you do need anything, my email should be just up there. Okay, so give me an email if you need any help, or if you have finished, please send it to that. Okay, now year 8, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you've got and seeing where your imagination goes as always, so please impress me. All right, guys, stay safe. Mr. Jones, out, and I'll see you soon. See you next week. Thanks.